welcome, B. Horn.
And now, let's welcome today's guest, Michael B. Horn.
Good to see you guys.
Hey, go.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. No.
Yeah, first, thank you. But we might have some time differences in the microphone, but it's gonna be okay. Because the more for you, and I'd like to so much for giving us the honor to join on the so much, Michael, and welcome.
You bet. It's my pleasure to be with you both. I know we are spanning the globe, I guess, this morning. So it's a heck of a lot of fun to get to talk education and how we can improve it together.
Yeah.
Let me introduce you, Stuart Allen. We both, for the story, we used to be for a good 20 plus years, but now he's back in England. I'm still in China, teaching English and teaching French as well in an international school. But Stu is actually, you are, Stuart, you are still, you're being a CIPD level 5 advanced diploma and development, because well is thinking in learnings all together.
Yeah, I mean, I've been interested in technology within teaching for like my whole career, and it's getting so exciting right now. The what teachers have at their disposal for teaching is just unprecedented, and it's getting more and more exciting. Literally, as months go by, new things are developing, new ideas are coming out. The technology is just exponentially improving, and it's an exciting time. So I'm really looking forward to having you on, Michael.
Thank you so much. I hopefully with those expectations I don't disappoint, but I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
All right, so just let's start. Can you kind of sort of introduce yourself very your career? Why did you choose? How you came to choosing blended learning as an?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got my start in education specifically in 2006. I had been a student at the Harvard Business School. So I went not thinking I was going to do education, but I wanted to do something public service minded. And while there, I took Clay Christensen's class. Clay Christensen, for those that know, father of disruptive innovation theory. And he had this opportunity to write a book with him, applying his ideas to how could schools innovate. And that became Disrupting Class. I co-authored it with him. I founded the Clayton Christensen Institute, a nonprofit think tank. And the big idea of Disrupting Class was that the way most schools today work and function have nothing to do with optimizing kids' learning, that they are all built around an efficiency factory-based model where we take students in, batch them, send them out the other side. And so to answer your question and make a long story shorter, technology, we believed, used in different models, right, could personalize learning. But it became clear for K through 12 students, yes, some of them will be virtual, but most families want them to go somewhere. They want to have a social experience. The kids want that as well. And so how do you really blend the digital learning into classrooms in a thoughtful way to not just continue the lockstep instruction, but to really personalize it so every child can learn and master at the pace and path that makes sense for them?
Very interesting, and your choice of disrupting the classroom, that's quite powerful language. So what was the thought process behind calling it that?
Yeah, it was on multiple levels, right? And you're astute to pick up on it. Obviously, disruptive innovation was what Clay had been known for. But what we quickly realized was disrupting schools, at least in the United States and frankly, most developed countries with mandatory education, wasn't going to be possible, right? Because you have schools, everyone attends them, they feel free to most families. And so as a result, disruptive innovation is where there's the alternative is nothing at all, where you can offer a cheaper product or service. That's not what we're talking about when it comes to education, right? And so what we said though is, are there ways to disrupt the classroom structure itself, which we sort of make synonymous with this batch processing, right? And so could you instead move to a design really of learner studios, if you will, where individuals come in, they are learning online at the path and pace that makes sense for them. They're getting to group up in projects with different, groupings of students, different small groups with the teacher for whatever the, purpose might be, and getting to learn in that way. And so we really said, how do we overthrow the classroom structure within schools that we think is holding ourselves back so much? And so that was the origin of the title. I guess the third one was, socioeconomic class is often very predictive of how students do in schools. And so I guess the question, right, would be, can we overthrow that predictability, right? If we make schools that are really built around each and every child's learning, maybe we can make class a little less predictive of how people do.
Right. Thank you. Michael, I know that you have even coming up. This is a book, right? About this book.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. It's right behind me over there on my shoulder. Job moves, and wow, you just pulled it up there. 9 steps for making progress in your career. So this might feel different from K through 12 education in schools, but what I would say is, as I've been in the world of education, what's clear is that K through 12 schools are often dependent on college and the career pathways available to learners. And if I'm serious about helping every individual be able to build their passions and fulfill their potential, you have to think about the job market as well. And so this book is sort of a what color is your parachute for the modern age. We worked with over 1,000 individuals, tracking why they switched jobs. And then we built a process that we've tested with actually multiple cohorts of individuals to actually help them change more successfully, basically saying, I think we can build a design process. So it's a super practical book of how do you actually better switch jobs so that you're actually making progress in your career. And I think it has real adaptability to K through 12 classrooms as well. It's not written that way, but increasingly I've become of the view that our middle and high school students, secondary students, right, in particular, need much more exposure to the workforce so that they can make decisions about their own pathways and so forth. And frankly, with the pace of AI changing work, I think more experiential learning to keep up with it is going to be more and more important.
That's so cool. The thing with education, what is it for? What is education? Who is it for? And these are really deep questions. And quite often, like you say, students get towards kind of graduating high school and they really don't know the direction that they need to go in. And oftentimes they haven't developed the skills within schools to prepare them adequately for the workforce, So that sounds very, very cool.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think it's interesting, right? Because in our fights and debates over what is school for, we often jump into the it's either this or that. And I think we have to be honest, this is an and conversation, right? Like we are trying to develop individuals so that they can lead prepared, successful lives as adults. That means workforce, and that means some of those things. And if we develop individuals to be capable and critical thinkers, we'll also have a better society. So I think sometimes we pit these things against each other, and at least in my small brain, they tend to swim together more often than we like to admit.
Yeah. So no, definitely right. Definitely right. They really do complement each other. Absolutely. And it's so important as well about the community as well, you know, like developing good community. So going back in time, how did you kind of start your kind of love affair with blended learning and technology within education?
Yeah, so I was just blown away, and I'll do the blended learning specifically, maybe, and then if we want to go deeper into the technology, we can. But the blended learning specifically, so we wrote Disrupting Class. It came out in 2008, and we knew it was an incomplete thought, and so the team that I started building at the Christensen Institute and I started spending more and more time in schools that were using technology in different ways. And what we soon realized was that some of them, not all of them, there's a lot of bad uses of technology in education. We should say that. But some of them were doing really cool things where the students were coming in and saying, I'm going to set my goal for what I'm going to learn today. I'm going to show you how I'm going to go realize that. Like, they had so much agency and executive function skills, and they were so driven. And they were like, and then I would see them, like, you know, go up to the teacher and say, hey, can I show you how I just did this thing? Right. And so that they would show it, and the teacher would say, not quite, Michael, you need a little bit more work in this, you know, and give some pointers. And then the student, rather than being crushed, would just say, oh, got it. Like, super excited, go back, work harder. And then, you know, 20 minutes later, pop back up and show them. Right. And so I started seeing this in many schools after another. And all of a sudden, you know, it becomes clear to you, right, that the rate limiter of lessons doesn't have to be the one teacher with 30 some odd students in the classroom.
Yeah.
That actually the technology can do a lot of that work. And then the kids start owning their own learning, and they only move on once they achieve mastery, right? And then I'll tell you the other part of it that really clinched it for me was we were in one of these schools in Silicon Valley, and I saw this kid, you know, just going through that sequence I'd said, and they were sort of struggling. And another kid across the room came over and said, you know, I was just wrestling with that same thing last week. Let me show you how I did it. And taught the other kid, you know, like a 5-minute lesson, maybe, like how they did it. And the teacher wasn't like, go back to your seat, or, you know, this was like a beautiful moment of this, you know, kid showing real mastery because they could now teach it. Like, once you can teach something, you're really a master of it. Right. And this other child not being put down at all, just like, oh, thank you. Right. And, afterwards I asked the teacher, and, you know, she was like, well, 2 weeks ago, it was the other way. Like, that kid, you know, the other kid was tutoring the other kid, right, on something different. And I thought it was so beautiful how you built social interactions, right? This was not isolated learning where people were clicking away, you know, by themselves. It was deeply social, but a positive social interaction. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but like, I remember being in grade 7 specifically, and like, my social interactions were like pencil fighting with the other kids in the back of the room and trying to make sure the teacher didn't see me. Like, this was a really beautiful educational moment that I realized was only possible with technology being directly in the hands of the kids themselves, and them having agency and autonomy around it.
Yeah, that's a big thing, giving students the autonomy to be able to make their own decisions in their learning and decide upon the pathway, guided with the teacher, of course, but
Yeah.
collaborating as well, like working together as a team to, you know, to achieve tasks. I think it can be quite intimidating, can't it, for lots of teachers? Like, we were talking about this last week on the live stream. It's like, where do we start? Let's say you're a teacher that you've never really used technology. You might have an interactive whiteboard. That's about it. You might have video functions for YouTube videos or whatever, but how can you take the next step? Take it further.
Yeah. By the way, just to first confirm, I do think it is scary, right, for teachers, because one of the things, so they're worried about the technology, but even more so, I think they're worried about, wait a minute, you're telling me all 30 kids are going to be in different places. Like, that's chaos. How do I manage it? And what about like the kids who are laggards? Like, what do I do? Like, how am I going to keep them up? That sounds really hard, right? And it's almost like the, chaos theory, right? Like the ping pong balls going everywhere. And so I think it feels really scary. I think honestly, the easiest way to get into this is the flipped classroom model, where you literally say, you said it, like, maybe I'm using some YouTube videos, maybe I've created some videos myself, maybe I've used a free resource like Khan Academy or something like that. And say, okay, the next lesson you're going to do at home. And when you come into the classroom, we're actually going to do what used to be the homework, right? And, some of you will go right through the problem sets, or you'll go right through the project, or whatever it is, right? And that's fine. And then after a couple weeks of this, Stuart, what I think happens is teachers will naturally start to say, oh gosh, like, Stuart's ready to just run through this material. Maybe I let him do 3 videos tomorrow night, because like, he's clearly showing he's got it. Michael over here needs a little bit more work. So I'm going to spend, maybe a little extra time with him in class, just to make sure he doesn't fall behind too far. Right. And so all of a sudden, through baby steps, you can start not just using technology, but also starting to personalize over time, the different pathways for kids. And it's baby steps. I think of flipped classroom, sometimes people dismiss it. To me, it's sort of a gateway drug into this world.
Yeah.
And it's a powerful way to just get started.
Yeah. We were talking about flip learning last week, and it's the perfect way to get going. And I love that analogy, like the gateway drug to start off everything, because you can really personalize it. You can make I remember a few years ago, I made a video on fair trade farming and fair trade with community, like kind of underprivileged communities and stuff. So I made a video myself. The students went home and watched the video, and then on the Monday we came in and kind of began the topic of fair trade. So we're kind of flipping the classroom, and it gives you the confidence. It works. You saw it working. I'm going to try it again. I love it.
I got a question. We have a lot of people in the world here on Mike's Home ESL, and so what advice would you give to educators with resources or devices, but who still want to incorporate learning in their classes?
Yeah, great question, Mike. And we see this all the time. I will tell you, some of the best blended learning models that I've ever seen actually only have a device, like one device for every 3 or 4 kids. And you can do a great job of it. So I'll give you one example, and maybe this will resonate. And then we can go deeper if you want. But for schools, or frankly families, right, with limited means, where that's the case, what you can do is set up a station rotation in your classroom. And for elementary school teachers out there, in some ways, this is, a lot of them maybe already teach with centers-based models in their classroom. But essentially, one of those centers or one of those stations is the one with the few computers in the class, right? And so you divide your class. Say I'm making this up, but let's say you got 30 kids. Let's say you're going to do 4 stations, right? So let's say we've got groups of 7 or 8 kids or so, right, roughly, and maybe 7 or 8 kids are in small group instruction with the teacher. Okay, they're getting the lesson of the day. They're getting maybe particular reading or English work, right? You said it was ESL, so we're getting some dedicated time with the teacher, and that's really important, because when it's a 7-to-1 or 8-to-1 student teacher ratio, kids are going to get a lot more talk time. And the only way to really learn a language is to listen and talk. That exchange is really important. So so we're creating that station. A second station, group of students who are maybe doing offline project together about, cultural application, right? In an English speaking country, perhaps, right? Of something. And then we've got a third station. Maybe they're doing the exact same thing. So we've got 2 projects sort of going, or maybe that third one is a worksheet or something like that. And then the fourth station is those computers. And there, you could be working, you're going to work on some sort of English language program. These days it might be mobile devices. You might be doing Duolingo, right? Back in the day when I was studying this, it was Rosetta Stone a lot of times that you would see on computers. There's disruption, things change in that market as well. But maybe it's Babbel. Like there's a lot of programs, right, you could use. And so kids are getting personalized lessons at that station. And then the cool thing for the teacher is at the end of the class period, you're looking at the data and you're saying, okay, Michael's still struggling with verbs, right, in this context, but so are 6 other kids. And so tomorrow, the small group on the rug with me, when we're having talk time, I'm going to take all those kids who are struggling with that same thing so that we can really support them together. And so that might be an easy way to do it. I'll give you one other example, because I do a lot of work with an organization called Imagine Worldwide. And we are providing self-directed learning through tablets in countries like Malawi, Tanzania, Sierra Leone, on the African continent. And incredible results, by the way, teaching basic literacy and maths. And these are classrooms or schools where the ratio is 150 students to 1 teacher, 200 students to 1 teacher, right? And there, what we've had to do is obviously provide tablets for the kids, but they're powered by solar power. And they charge overnight. So the bank takes in the solar power during the day and then charges the devices overnight. And all of the software is offline. So 1 Billion is a nonprofit out of England, and that's who provides the software for learning how to become literate and learning maths. They have programs in Chichewan, English, Swahili, French, and kids learn how to, speak and read through these programs. Incredibly cool. It's all offline, and so we're actually able to operate at less than $7 per kid per year. So that all of a sudden becomes something that a lot of governments, right, can help fund, for example. So just a couple ideas of how this could work.
Yeah, that's so cool. I've seen a lot of research done by in-service teachers and for literacy, using tablets for literacy, and the results are there. It's beyond dispute that using tablets for your classes for early literacy, is well founded. And that sounds so cool. Everything's sustainable. You've got you can charge up the bank's solar power. Everything's offline, so the school doesn't need to have Wi-Fi the whole time. $7 per student per year. That's very doable, I think. Given if they're getting the funding.
Yeah. I'll give you a data point, right? Malawi spends roughly $56 per kid per year on all school. So, look, $7 is, or $6, whatever it is, that's a sizable chunk of the budget, but it's still less, it's not 80% of the budget. So we still have 80% of the funds to really go toward the most important resource, which are those teachers still. And human capital, right, in all schools takes up the lion's share of the budget. This is really helping us with the curricular expense, right, for kids, and we're making it accessible to everyone at that sort of price point. So I think that's one way you can really tackle it. And like I said, the other way is you don't need a device for every kid.
Yeah.
And you can
Yeah.
create these models that are super practical and allow kids to rotate through, and giving teachers a lot of data and feedback that they can use to improve their own instruction with the kids.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, like if like the stations you're creating, it's so good for like differentiated learning. And it's a great example if you do have limited resources, maybe you do have a classroom of 30 kids, but you've only got 5 laptops, then yeah, just make all of those, or not laptops, your tablets, make all of your tablets be on that station. And then other stations could be a writing task, could be a worksheet, could be like a listening activity that you've created. Circle time, you know, you might get the students down on the road to work out their differences and stuff. And you mentioned a good point there about assessment. So, and then getting data and then working with the data to understand how you can, you know, what you can do with that. So how might you use technology for assessment?
Yeah, I think this is one of the most exciting things, right? Because we can get real time interactive results from technology to actually figure out how students are doing. And ideally, I think we still need help in this area from the software makers, but ideally, we're getting real time dashboards for teachers that inform them how kids are doing. So I'll give you a few examples. Obviously there's the, less interesting multiple choice stuff that comes up in a lot of the platforms right now. I would say that has a certain use case, right? The first time someone goes through it, if they show confusion, I think that is an important data point. When they go through it the 5th time, I think it's a less helpful data point because you could do a lot of guessing, right, to get to the right answer. But that first data point, I think, can be really helpful for teachers. And again, as opposed to homework, right? Like in the old days with worksheets that you had to grade, you get it immediately. The second thing that I think technology does really well on that is there is some objectivity, right? In the sense of, and I see it. Look, my kids are both in Montessori schools. I have twins. They're in 4th grade, so they're personalized, mastery based, all the things that I like. Without the digital technology, though, it's largely through the manipulatives, which are quite expensive.
Yeah, tactile materials.
Exactly, right. And so it's very cool, like what Maria Montessori built, 100 years ahead of its time. It's amazing. But what's interesting, and I love their teachers, but when they were in lower elementary, I could see that they were getting evaluated differently because I knew their abilities as well, right? And then I would get the progress reports, and one kid would be excelling in this, and the other kid would be struggling in it. And I was like, I know it's actually the other way around on that particular subject. And so you all just have different standards, grading scales, right? That you're using. It's not consistent. And so the cool thing I think about technology, or being able to use technology even to get a third party teacher in there, right, virtually, to be able to give feedback, is you sort of take some of that bias, right, out of it. Because teachers, I think, in my experience, I know it's true for me in my classroom when I teach at Harvard, I want every student to succeed. I don't really want to grade and judge them. That's not what gives me personal energy. So that's a part of this equation. The other thing that I think is really cool that's starting to happen, and I'm curious if you all are seeing it, but with the artificial intelligence now increasingly coming in as a tool for teachers, the ability, I think, to assess project-based work. Yeah, the ability to assess project-based work and real simulations and real, like, in context learning, I think is going to be really freaking cool. And so we're going to get to a level of richness and feedback, I think, that could be much more both engaging for the students, but also informative, right, for the teachers, rather than just say like a multiple choice check, right? It can be, I mean, the AI now already can quickly read my essay and say, Michael consistently struggles to communicate this kind of an idea, right? And so, okay, like, what do we do to help him with that? Michael consistently struggles with these grammatical mistakes. Okay, what do we do to help him with that, right? Like, that stuff the AI can do today. I think where it's going to go as it starts to assess work in context is going to become really, really interesting over the next few years.
That
now let's welcome Emily Bryson.
So we're gonna be talking today about evaluation, for how you can like evaluate your own skills as a teacher. That's something that all of us should do, but often because we're busy teachers, it's easy to forget to take those minutes and that time to evaluate yourself to see the direction that you're going, if your teaching's working. Yeah, Mike, do you ever get a chance to kind of evaluate your own teaching?
Well, I evaluate myself when I see that students don't get it. So I always ask myself, oh, I did something wrong, or why they don't understand this. Usually, I won't check, on purpose. Maybe it's wrong. Is that I just check when I can see the students, they don't understand what I'm saying, or there's something wrong, or after results of their tests, especially in French, when they learn, paper tests, they hate it because it's really difficult, French grammar. So I will ask myself pretty much, what did I do wrong? But I can't wait for Emily to tell us a little bit about, to have maybe a structure or where to think, that's we all have to do for sure. But I want to, I'm not, I'm gonna mark or do some notes about what I should do next time. But I feel like it's really difficult to check your own progress. So I love when there are teachers coming for, observation. It's really helpful because it's difficult to check yourself, check your own progress. Obviously, the progress you're going to see is going to be your students' progress, right? It's going to be difficult for you to evaluate your own. So that's a very interesting topic. How about you, Stu?
Yeah, so I really advocate for teachers to self-evaluate and reflect, reflect on how the lesson went. And if quite often, I remember when I was a younger teacher, the lesson didn't go to plan, and I would feel frustrated. I would feel angry. Often I would blame the students for not understanding or it not working. They were playing around rather than listening, and it didn't go to plan. But actually, reflecting back, maybe they were playing around because I didn't give the instructions very well, or I didn't make things clear. I didn't model it well enough. The techniques I used, maybe the task was too long and they lost their concentration, and it wasn't their fault. It was, at the end of the day, it was my fault. And through that reflective process, I would be able to go back. Let's say I'm doing the class again with a different set of students. I would change some things. Maybe I'd make the task shorter. I would take a little extra time to model it a bit so the students are more clear before we really began the main part of the task. So I would tweak my teaching because of my reflection and self-evaluating myself. And long term, when you look at the bigger picture, when you evaluate the different, rather than just kind of micro situations, when you kind of a macro evaluate yourself, that's really important as well. What ways can you be training? What webinars can you attend? How can you improve and brush up on the skills that you feel that you're weak in? There's something called the European Profiling Grid, which is part of my course on Unit 18. And the EPG, the European Profiling Grid, you can self-evaluate and self-assess your own teaching, and you can it's quite a long questionnaire. It's kind of like taking you about 20 minutes, and you self-assess yourself using your European Profiling Grid. It's completely free. Go and check it out on Google at the end of this live stream, and you can see what areas where you feel that you're deficient, and then you can write, okay, so I'm not very good at admin. You know, I'm good in the classroom, but my admin skills are a bit weak, a bit sloppy, whatever. I'm going to learn how to become better at doing the admin, or, you know, whatever, testing. And then you can focus on that using the EPG, the European Profiling Grid. So yeah, there's lots of different ways, but yeah, I'm really kind of stoked about hearing Emily's ideas about how we can self-evaluate ourselves and our skills.
All the tools that I'm going to show you are usable, reusable for yourself, for your students, for your team, for your school. You can use them in so many different ways to evaluate your own progress, where you are now, your progress. So you can use them, like for example, today, and then use them again in 12 weeks, and then look back at your distance traveled. And you also touched on goal setting. So I think goal setting is such an integral part of self-evaluation, because when you self-evaluate and you become aware of where you are, or your students become aware of where they are and where they want to be, and then they can track their progress and how they got on with it and what went wrong. Why didn't they improve as much as they wanted? What how could they improve more rapidly? So yeah, there's lots to look at. Shall I share my screen and
Yeah, please.
show
Yeah,
you some of
sure.
the tools?
Yeah. I'm gonna
Yeah.
leave some space.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to use Canva Whiteboard, which is one of my favorite tools because, can you see that?
Not yet. Maybe it's
Not
gonna
yet.
come.
Hmm.
Hopefully.
It says I'm screen sharing. Oh, it's because I think my shared screen is backstage. Is that possible?
I'm looking.
I can see it in the
But
backstage
usually,
area. I'm screen sharing at the moment, but
oh
I'm not
yes,
sure if you
okay,
get any
okay. All right,
permissions.
here we go.
Ah!
Uh-huh. Excellent.
Here we
Good.
go.
Okay. So this is actually the front cover of my Pathways to Success resource pack. And I want to start with it from an evaluation perspective, because I'm going to switch over. I'll be looking only at Canva. So let me know if there's something I'm missing out on. So yeah, this image that with graphic facilitation, there's a lot of visual metaphors. And I think visual metaphors are a great
Yeah.
way to take a step back, maybe desensitize some topics, make them a little bit fun. And I think some people think that these kind of tools are just for kids. And I have to say that adults enjoy joy just as much as kids do, and adults enjoy fun just as much as kids do. So all of these tools, I have used them with my adult learners. So don't be put off by all the colorful images. They actually love them just as much as kids will.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So yeah, I love Canva Whiteboard because it's
Oh yeah, it's
free.
awesome.
You can. I'm gonna just do a quick demo with it because I love it so much. So you can go to share and like share with either an email address or with by using a public view link, and then you can get students to collaborate using those. You can add images and sticky notes, and you can get students to interact on Zoom. If you're in a Zoom room, you can get them to add sticky notes for their ideas, for example. You can get them to draw, you can get them to add text notes, for example. But this is not about Canva, but I just wanted to give a quick overview of why I'm using it and why I love it. So
I
these
use
visual,
Canva as well. I use Canva as well, but I haven't actually used this function. Would this be available in the
yeah,
free version to use?
think so. I'm pretty sure the whiteboard is available on the free. The things that won't be available on the free are things like if you want to add like some pro images.
Templates.
So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
some
Yeah,
graphics, that's a pro graphic. That
yeah.
graphic's free. This photo's a pro graphic. This one's free. So the good thing about Canva is that you can use it for, like, I use it for making Instagram reels. You can make PowerPoint
Yeah.
Canva presentations in PowerPoint style. You can use it for videos. There's lots of stock photos, stock images, stock graphic organizers, all sorts of cool stuff. And you can upload my cool visual templates to it.
True.
So I'm going to just have a think. When it comes to evaluating, so you can draw this tool or demonstrate this to the students. So for example, there are lots of different ways to learn English. Some students might be flying and feeling super confident. They might have maybe an English language speaker best friend or a family member. Maybe they're growing up in a family with an English speaking family. They might be struggling up the hill in first year on a bike with their English. They might be taking the slow but steady path. They might be doing a super intensive course, or they might be focusing specifically on English for traveling or English for restaurant workers, for example, in which case they might be taking a bit of a shortcut. So lots of different visual
Nice.
metaphors that you can get them to explore where they are. And you can use this obviously with your teaching as well. So how are you feeling about your teaching? Are you struggling a bit at the moment? Or what made you struggle last week? What are you quite happy with and you're plodding along with? What are you super confident with? So these visual metaphors can be used and reused in different ways. You just need to get creative about the way you're thinking about them. Any thoughts for how you might use this in your class that you would add?
Yeah, I think if I was using this to teach, this is like you say, this is a really good way for students to kind of take a step back and think, right, okay, yeah, I do struggle at learning English. There are times I feel frustrated and I don't understand, I don't like it. And by doing that, students can look inside themselves and go, right, no, I'm not on my own. I am struggling, but so is my friend there. So is my friend there. And by doing that, it bridges the gap between the teacher and the students as well. So you become a community where you're self-reflecting and helping each other and understanding each other's own difficulties and victories as well. So you might have a small victory. You know, my use of punctuation was great in that last task, for example. I still struggle in this, but that's a small victory. And so that you could use something like that to bring the class together to kind of
Cheer them up.
self-evaluate
Yeah.
their skill.
Motivation.
Yeah, very motivating.
Yeah, it's great for
Yeah.
motivation.
True.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And I
to
like
get
that
to
little
maybe
guy on
if
the
you
top
give
as
some
well.
time, sorry.
I said I like the little guy on top there as well, you know, like the end point, there's an end goal as well.
Yeah.
But then is there really an end goal? Because behind every mountain, there's generally more mountains. So you get to the top of that mountain and then you decide, what's my next challenge? Where am I going to go next? But yeah, it's nice to have this little path as well for and how far along the path are you? And so you can actually build this into your daily practice when it comes to after class. You can reflect yourself. What did you struggle with? What was easy? What did you succeed at? Were you super confident with? Or you can do that with your students as well. Build in some time for them to discuss what's challenging me at the moment. What am I happy with? That kind of thing.
And also, it's not a straight path either. So there will be times when you struggle and then you get back onto it. So you can demonstrate it might not be straightforward.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, you can draw this people can draw this in class as well. So so a mountain is basically just a triangle. So and yeah, so you can draw it like maybe in your own Canva whiteboard or on your own whiteboard. So yeah, it can just be a mountain like this. I quite like adding some snow at the top. To draw a person, I quite like these little oval shaped bodies.
Yeah.
And then just little arms up. Canva does make your drawings a little bit sugary, a little bit shaky, but that's okay. It's all about communicating and getting your point across. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, when I'm creating these in a more pro level and not doing them interactively, then I'd use a different program from Canva. Yeah, this hot air balloon, for example, is sometimes I just reselect that, is a rectangle and then a circle and then some little M shapes.
It's really simple, right?
Yeah, like it's not about art. I always say
Mhm.
it's not art, it's communication.
I've got a friend in China, and she wanted to make a little kind of like ebook or something. I haven't
Yeah,
spoken to her a while. I'll have to check in with her. But basically, she had like 500 little doodles. How to draw these little classroom doodles, like a dog, a cat, a hot air
nice.
balloon, a mountain, in a really good way. So you
Oh, yeah.
quickly open the book, and then you can do that to kind of facilitate learning and make learning easier using these doodles.
Yeah, like one visual can really bring a classroom to life. Like I always say, if you've got a whiteboard just full of text, that's going to be
Yeah,
quite overwhelming and the meaning's not there. But if you have a
Yeah.
whiteboard full of text and doodles, then instantly there's something there for your memory, there's something there to aid understanding, there's something to reduce processing load. Like, I don't think there's a human on the planet that would prefer to read a 10-page document over an infographic. Maybe I'm wrong,
yeah,
but I would certainly prefer the quick, fast infographic with the reduced processing load. Um, yeah, I'd love to
yeah,
connect with your
absolutely.
friend in China. That'd be amazing to see that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll speak to her, and yeah, I'll connect you guys so you can chat. Yeah.
It makes
Cool.
me remember as well one coworker who was teaching with drawing all the time. I mentioned it last time we had Emily on the chat. He was literally with the content that he has, he would literally draw and create a story and drawing all the different vocabulary on the and then he would erase right away and change another one. He was super active so that the kids were watching and I was watching. I was like, wow. The guy was super fast. He was in it, but that's a pity I don't have his contact. That was back in 2003, brother. Damn, that's a long, long
Yeah.
time ago.
There's so much you can do. Like if you gain confidence with your drawing, there's so much you can do, like
True.
adding doodles to your whiteboards, all of these activities and all the activities in my resource packs and online courses. Once you learn them, you can use them in so many different ways. So like you can go into any classroom and you feel prepared because
Yeah,
you have these doodles in your head. Like you're basically a walking
Yeah,
lesson plan.
that's awesome.
true.
If
So
you're a teacher
yeah.
out there and you kind of what are the benefits of self-evaluating? Like, why is this good for your career and good for your teaching? What are some of the advantages of evaluating yourself?
Yeah. Good question.
Yeah, that's what the teacher would ask.
Yeah. Do you want an answer or do you want me to
Yeah,
let
yeah,
people have
yeah.
a
Just kind of,
chat first?
yeah. Let's shoot the breeze with each other about evaluation.
Okay, I'm going to move on to this template here because it's super easy to draw and
Mm,
can be used in so many ways. But when it comes to self-evaluating, I think it's so important to be aware of where you are, where you want to be, and what's holding you back. What's what are you confident with? Because I think a lot of people can get bogged down on the things that they're maybe not good at because the inner troll is strong. I certainly get a lot of negative thoughts every day, and sometimes it's quite hard to make them stop. Um, And I think self-evaluating can help you be aware of your strengths just as much as your weaknesses. And your weaknesses aren't necessarily weaknesses, they're just things about you. And if you identify these things, then you can move on, you can be aware of them, you can manage them, and yeah, you can move forward and be confident of the things that you are amazing at, for example. So this particular template, I have 10 different ways to use this template. One of them is, so for example, at the end of a class or in general, what are you amazing at? What are you pretty happy with? What are you okay at? What do you need more practice at? And what are you really not confident at? Or like at the end of a class, what was, you know, those moments in class, I think we've all had them when you're like, oh man, I wish I hadn't done that. That didn't work. You could put that,
Yeah.
but at the same
Yeah,
time, you
yeah.
can also put these awesome things. Everyone's had them, right? If I'd,
Yeah.
I remember my
Exactly.
diploma lesson. I was doing a diploma lesson and I prepared so much for this diploma lesson. And the students were just watching me the whole time going, what's happened to the teacher? Why is she doing this? This is the students wanted the ground to swallow them up as well because this lesson was just so awful. And I think because I'd over prepared for it, I was stressed. I knew I was getting observed. And yeah, that was one of those lessons that I would rather forget. But at the same time,
Ah,
that has
yeah.
helped me become who I am today, which is
Yeah.
another way you
I
can use
really,
this template.
Yeah.
You can
Awesome.
use it to tell a story, something that was awful. How did you
Ah,
feel
true.
at different points throughout the day? Like different recognitions, like the time that I recognized that I wasn't actually speaking in English when I was speaking in Scottish, um, which has made me be
Yeah.
very good at communicating across languages now. So like incidents that get you from here to here. And you can switch this round. Sometimes I feel like the storm cloud should be over here rather than here.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
As yeah. I'll just quickly show people how to draw this because I think this is the one that gives people lots of confidence in drawing because I know there's a lot of people out there that are like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know how to draw. I haven't drawn since I was maybe at high school or primary school even. And then when I was at primary school, everybody told me that I couldn't draw. And I think we need to turn off our inner troll with that because everybody can draw. And the way that I draw is very simple. It's definitely not art. It's just basically putting lots of shapes together. So yeah, this sun is a circle. Oops. And it doesn't need to be a perfect circle. I tend to do the lines at like 2:30, etc.
Me
first.
too. When I'm
And
drawing, like,
then,
yeah, I'd start with that and then work off from that.
yeah. And then the clouds, the beauty of the clouds is that you can turn them into sheep, for example. And then if you're doing uh like a phonics activity, um sometimes you need to reselect for some reason. Uh, like for example, sheep, and then you could get students to add all the different words like with feet or other words with E. I've
Yeah, yeah,
forgotten
yeah,
every
yeah,
single one, but you get
yeah.
the idea. But basically fill the
Yeah,
sheet with I like to call it a container activity. So you draw it really big on the whiteboard and then students maybe copy it to their notebook and then fill the container with lots of ideas or words. But yes, this one started
yeah,
life as a
yeah.
cloud. But you can turn it into a thought bubble as well. So all of these. Um,
So I've had those kind of like stormy bad lessons, like as we all have a lot, and they've always been learning opportunities to become a better
yeah,
teacher.
exactly.
Yeah, it's never that all bad. There's
No,
good that comes out of it.
No, you
it's
learn
seeing the
with making
positive,
mistakes.
seeing the silver lining in every lesson and every opportunity. It's like
Yeah,
we always
Yeah.
tell our students to learn from mistakes. We learn from our teaching mistakes
Yes,
too.
exactly.
so simple, isn't it?
Yeah, so simple. And yeah, so other ways to use it, like, is it like a check-in for students at the beginning of class? Like I taught a lot of students who had experienced a lot of trauma, had mental health problems. So it was quite a nice way at the beginning or end of class to say, how are you feeling? For many, their ESOL class was an opportunity to come and socialise and forget about the horrible things that were happening back in their home countries, or with their visa application, for example. So they would come into class and maybe you could ask them, how are you feeling today? I'm feeling like this. I'm feeling like a storm cloud. Why are you feeling like a storm cloud? If you want to share that, for example.
Yeah.
You can obviously use it to talk about the weather. How is the weather today?
True.
You can tell a story with it, talk about progress, as we mentioned. You could get them to check their understanding. We've just learned present perfect. How do you feel about that? I'm really confident. I need to do it again, for example. And likes and dislikes. For example, I love chocolate. I don't like being in cities, I think I've discovered. I think I prefer the countryside, for example. So yeah, lots of different things that you can do with one template.
Yeah.
And yeah, good for class and good for class and good for meetings. It could be what are we doing really well as a team at the moment? What are students enjoying in our class, in our school? What do we need to improve on in our school? What are we doing okay? That kind of thing. And then obviously self-evaluating yourself and your own classes. But yeah,
Yeah.
speaking a lot, so feel free to add information,
No,
add
no,
your
no, no.
ideas.
Just like, as always, Emily, it's just great to have you on, and like this kind of energy that you give out, and these graphics are so useful for so many ways. And yeah, like you can use these to ask your students how they're getting on. It creates a good platform for shared community, and yeah, having a really good kind of creative interactive lesson. But also, again, you can use it for yourself. I feel that was a bit stormy, that particular bit, and it can help that reflection, and it can create a platform where you can self-evaluate and reflect on your own teaching, and then you can change these little things, right? Maybe the again, your instructions went wrong. They started doing the wrong thing. They didn't get it. Whatever, how you controlled the energy levels in the classroom was a bit off. There's so
Yeah,
many different facets in each class.
yeah. Yeah, you're right
Oh,
about the energy levels. It's quite a good way to monitor energy levels as well, isn't
yeah,
it?
right.
Whether they're not feeling, or there could be, yeah, negative vibe energy, for example.
Yeah, or
Or
you're teaching
and
younger
that's
students
yeah,
and they're getting a bit hectic, and then you need to pull it back a bit.
yeah. And actually the
Um,
impact of what the weather has on your emotions as well. Like I'm from Scotland, and the rain, when it was rainy, that's part of the reason why we're traveling in Latin America now. We're looking for permanent summer because the winter in Scotland is just so miserable. So, and that really impacts on people's moods. And
yeah, yeah, mental
yeah,
health as well, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah. So, shall I show you another template? Um, this
Yeah,
is the um, hot air balloon confidence monitor. I suppose you can use it for confidence or distance traveled. Where are you in Zoom? I like to use the annotation tools in Zoom and ask students. So, for example, how confident? Okay, for example, we've just learned past simple. How confident are you with past simple? Are you down the bottom here, or are you right up here, confident? Or maybe you're not feeling, you're kind of confident, but you're not too confident.
mm,
Um, you can use it as a tracker for how did your class go? I didn't feel like I managed to get off the ground with that class, or that class was amazing. I've come out and I've totally been winning at teaching. Or yeah, you can. I quite like to do it at the beginning of a class and the end of a class. Sometimes I've used it in my training sessions for how confident are you with drawing, and then people say, I'm here, I'm an artist, for example.